Well, hello there. On this episode of The Christian Next to You, I'm here with my friend Mason, and he's going to tell us about who he is and where he's come from to now being the Christian next to you. I hope you enjoy this conversation with each other, and I hope you enjoy getting to know Mason a little bit better. Welcome back to another episode of The Christian Next to You. I'm your host, Parker LaGrange, and I'm excited for this episode that we've got going today. This is my friend Mason Ellis. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, those things.
I'm Mason Ellis. I'm 22. I am the youth intern for the summer.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to OC, and hopefully I'll be graduating in the fall.
Okay. What are you majoring in right now?
I'm majoring in math with a minor in business, and I want to be an actuary, which, if you don't know what that is, they work with insurance and they help calculate risk and they use a lot of math.
Okay, so
So,
you're a math guy for sure.
yeah.
Have you always been a math guy, or what's that been? Was there like ever a shift?
In early school, I was always like elementary and middle school, I was always decent at math, but I never was like, oh, I know I want to do math. Like in high school, I didn't even take math my senior year of high school,
Wow.
because in high school, I was honestly just like, as long as I can pass this class easily, it's fine. But then in college, when I really had to pick like a major, then I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at math, so.
That's cool. So you've done this same thing all the way since you started college?
Yes, I was
Wow.
undecided my first semester,
Okay.
but other than that,
Man, that's cool. There's not a lot of people that I talk to that like know exactly what they want to do right off the rip in college. That's cool that
well, I didn't know I wanted to be an actuary until just recently, but
okay.
I just knew at the beginning I was like, I'm pretty good at math, so I just went with it. So
That's really cool. I knew you were a math nerd. I'm the furthest from that. I am just the worst at math. I'm the kind of guy that I still count with my fingers a little bit. I get my calculator out for anything pretty much other than like basic addition.
yeah,
So
that's what most people say.
it's good to
So
have you as my intern this summer.
yeah,
Maybe as I'm teaching you stuff about ministry, you're teaching me math. That would be a pretty cool deal that we've got.
there's a whiteboard in there, so.
Oh, that's true. So tell me a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? Have you lived in Oklahoma City your whole life? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I was born in Missouri, Columbia, Missouri, and I went to church. I grew up in the Church of Christ. We went to this place called Fairview Church of Christ in Missouri, and that's where I spent probably like my first 10 years going to church, 9 or 10. And I have friends in that church, and we went to like LTC, Leadership Training for Christ, which Southwest has done, I think only once or twice. But so I had some experience in doing that when I was a kid and got some like medals and stuff. The kids go and they like compete with like they do like puppet shows and skits and stuff like that, and like Bible trivia. And so I remember doing that several years. But Fairview was just that was just like where I grew up. That was just the church I grew up in.
What moved you guys here?
Well, my dad, it was kind of to move like with my closer to my dad's family because my mom's family is all in Missouri
Okay.
and my dad's family is all in Oklahoma. So we kind of lived in Missouri like with my mom's family for the first part of my life. And then I don't really know the exact reason because I guess my dad's work let him work from home.
Mm.
So he didn't have to change jobs or anything. So it was just really convenient. And, it wasn't fully explained to me the exact technicalities behind why we moved. They didn't explain it to the 10-year-old. They were
Yeah, I
just
was about
like,
to say you're 10. Yeah.
we're moving. So I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Gotcha. Cool. So what kind of hobbies do you enjoy doing? What are some things that you would find yourself doing on a day-to-day basis right now?
I mean, playing chess.
Really?
I think everybody knows that I just like play chess a lot.
How? Like you meet in person or you go play online or what's
Yeah,
that like?
it's usually just pretty much online. Because it's hard to just walk up and find somebody that plays chess.
Right.
Well, but
Share about your experience at Oklahoma Christian this past semester.
oh yeah, there was like a chess tournament and
Humble brag here.
I did win, but yeah.
How many people did you go against?
There was probably well the ones that I played, I probably played like 3 or 4. There was only like 11 or 12 people in the tournament, so it wasn't like a huge thing.
Still,
But
still.
I did win.
That's really cool. Okay, so chess, what else?
I do play video games on occasion. My PlayStation did just break
Oh
though,
no.
so I'm not playing games right now. Just watching TV. I like to read. I like to read fantasy books in my spare time.
Cool.
That's about it. Sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah.
You like basketball, right? You're big into the NBA playoffs right now.
Yeah, I will say I was probably more into basketball when I was 10. I still like it. I'm
Uh-huh.
still a huge Lakers fan, but I watch it less than I used to.
Okay, you were a Lakers fan before the new era.
I was a Lakers fan like 2009. So
Okay,
like
so
when
you
they were
deserve to
good.
you deserve to be a Lakers fan today, huh?
They were good and then they were bad and then they got LeBron and then they were bad.
Oh.
So,
Gotcha. Well, cool, man. So tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a Christian. You told us that you were kind of born and raised in the Church of Christ, and you're 22,
yeah.
correct? And you're still in the church. Tell us about what that whole journey's been like for you.
So I didn't get baptized in Missouri. I got baptized in this building at Southwest. So I was 11. I'm pretty sure I was 11. It was the summer. So it's probably almost been 11 years exactly
Wow, that's cool.
since I've been a Christian. So exactly half of my life. Um, so I remember like leading up to it. Um, I always like felt like not to like brag on myself, but I felt like I kind of like grasped concepts like pretty well like early on. Like I wasn't super confused about like a lot of stuff. Like in school or anything, if we were in like talking about a subject, I don't feel like I was one of the kids that was like, "Oh, I don't get it."
Mm,
So in Bible class, like when we were talking about something, I was like, "Yeah, that like I get that." Like I kind of understand it, and like as a 10-year-old, I still had the knowledge of a 10-year-old. I wasn't like a
right.
genius, but it wasn't like where I was like, oh, I don't know like what these stories are all about or anything. So I kind of had a grasp of it, and I just kind of remember like just thinking about baptism. I didn't think about it a lot for like as an 8 or 9 year old. Um, it was just kind of something where I was like, okay, well, in the future, I'm gonna have to do that, but I'm just a kid now, so like
Hmm.
I don't care. Um, and I remember one of the first times I started seriously thinking about it was my mom. I don't know how that conversation got to this, but I was being tucked in one time, and I was probably 10 or 11, and she was like, what do you believe Jesus and is the son of God and God's real? Like I don't know how it got to that
Hmm.
specifically, but I was like scared to say yes because at the time I wasn't baptized. So instead of saying yes, I was like, well, I mean, like I was kind of like trying to avoid the question because if I said yes, then I didn't have an excuse
Oh, that's a
of
good.
why I
Yeah, I see.
wasn't baptized anymore because I couldn't say yes and then justify me not being baptized. So I was kind of like, well, I mean, maybe. But and my mom was like, well, I mean, you should know. Like we go to church every day, and you're pretty smart. And I did know. I did believe like God's real, Jesus is real. Like in my mind, I did believe that. So that was when I first like had a wake up call of like, well, I probably need to start thinking about being baptized because now I'm like of the age where I kind of like do know that it's probably time, or at least like I need to start thinking about it at the very least. And so that's kind of where it first started.
Okay, cool. And I remember you gave a devotional a few weeks ago, and you kind of talked about your mindset to
Hmm.
that decision in your own life and what life was like several years after that, even to now, do you feel like that was the best decision that you could have made at that time, or do you feel like you wish you waited several years, or
Uh,
just talk on that for a little bit?
that's a good question because honestly, like in my later years, I always like would sometimes think, well, did I do it at the right exact time? Should maybe I've waited like longer? And I think a lot of people do think like, should I have waited a little till I know a little bit more? But honestly, excuse me, I can say to myself that I know that like I believe Jesus was the Son of God. And if you had like grilled me at 11 years old of like, why do you believe it? Like, give like proof and examples, I probably would have struggled.
Yeah.
But I did believe as an 11-year-old, like, God's real, Jesus is the Son of God. And, like, that I believed in my heart. And so I think that was kind of like, I did have doubts like later on about that. But I think like sitting here now, I kind of like know like, it's okay. I did know enough, and I did believe that he was the Son of God.
Yeah. How much has you continuing to being the church helped you and helped really make you more of a confident person in that fact and make you a more confident Christian? What are some things that you feel like you've done to help you continue believing in that and living that way?
Well, I would say I've gotten more confident specifically in the last few years because I will say as a kid, if I can just go back to being a kid for a second, I was always like I talked about this in my lesson, like I was always scared of hell and stuff. So like when I first started thinking about it, that was when I first started thinking like, oh, I need to get baptized, and if I don't, I'm going to hell. So that was when that really first started.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point in time, I had no confidence. I was just like, anything could happen. If the wind blows in the wrong direction, then I'm
I'm done
gonna,
for. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I'm done for is like the exact phrase like I always thought of, like if I don't do this. And the way my mind works, like I always think of in things very technically. Like, so one conversation I remember having with my parents, and this was after years after I was baptized. This was actually recently. Um, was I remember, so like when you get baptized, you confess
Mm-hmm.
like Jesus is Lord. And so I was saying to my parents, well, they asked me, do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? And I said yes. So does that count because I only said yes? I didn't
Right.
say, like, I didn't repeat it like word for word. I just said the word yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were basically like, well, that's not really how, God works. He's not trying to like trip you up or like
Yeah.
beat you on a technicality. And so I think that was like one of my bigger flaws was I always was like, where am I like getting tricked? Where am I like
Mm.
messing up like barely? And I think that helps me like ironically like with math and stuff, but with other things where the technicality is like that's not how God works. That can like that can really trip me up. So I think like in the past year, I think is when I've gained the most confidence. And some of that has been like medication and stuff because I had anxiety and stuff like that. And I talked about like in my lesson, like looking up verses that are scary and stuff like that. And so I definitely was scared. I mean, I know we talked about in class like the unforgivable sin, and
Right.
I remember looking that up for hours after. And so that was like definitely terrifying for me, and like having conversations about stuff like that. And so I don't know if it was anything specific that I've done to gain that confidence, but just knowing that like just having conversations with my parents, having conversations with Alonzo, just kind of remembering like God loves you, and even when you mess up, and you can keep going forward.
Yeah.
So
Man, that's something that I've come to know about you is you're very curious and you need the facts. It's like you can't, and it does make sense why you're such a math guy, because with math everything is going to add up. Like
mhm.
there's going to be a definite answer, and if you didn't get to the right answer, it's like you're usually able to trace where something went wrong, right? You can work backwards.
Yeah.
And in our faith, I think a lot of times, unfortunately, and maybe not unfortunately, maybe it's good for us that we don't know all the answers.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever thought about that? That
Yeah,
there's so much
because
uncertainty.
that I think that's like faith, I will say, is probably one of the things I struggle with a lot because like I've always told like Alonzo, like when we've had conversations about biblical stuff, I've been like, I feel like you have more faith than me, like when we
Mm.
talk about stuff like this, because I doubt like a lot sometimes. And like I think about like Thomas when he like wanted to feel the nails. I was like, that would be me for
Oh
sure.
yeah, me too, man.
And because it's just like I want to like be able to like put it down to a science of like this is why I believe what I believe, and it all adds up, and it's like like unbeatable.
Uh-huh.
Like no one can tear this argument down. But it's like then at some point faith comes in, and that's where
Hmm.
it kind of it's difficult.
I get that. It's a difficult thing to grasp altogether. But going back to the idea of Thomas, it's like when you look at when Thomas was able to feel Jesus's hand,
Hmm.
there was that immediate reassurance of, "Wow, this is you, Jesus."
Yeah.
And a lot of times we give Thomas a bad rap and we call him doubting Thomas, but I'm like, well, I would have been doing the same thing. Like
Hmm.
I need the facts. Give me the facts. And it's interesting that Jesus gives him the facts. Like Jesus could have been like, no, you just need to believe.
Yeah.
But he like gave him even more reason to believe. And I think that's what he does by giving us the scriptures. Like there's so much, like if we want to search, we can find the answers usually. But
Hmm.
when you think about like how do you know heaven's real?
Yeah.
Man, I see the answers, but like I've never been able to see it. And as our jobs as Christians, it's like we need to believe. Like we need to trust that there's something after this life.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that's hard, especially someone with anxiety and working through anxiety where it's like so much doubt, I'm sure, comes into your life in so many different areas that I can see how faith is a difficult thing for you to grasp. But do you feel like over the years your faith has grown from when you were an 11-year-old getting baptized to where you're at as a 22-year-old?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because as an 11-year-old, I definitely believed, but it was kind of like this belief where you don't ask a ton of questions. You know, I've just always went to Bible class, and I was like, yeah, that like I believe, and like the stories make sense, and of course, but I had never really like encountered much like atheistic worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
So I was mostly just getting like the Christian like viewpoint. So it's like very easy to be a Christian when that's all you get.
For sure.
So as I got older, definitely that was challenged, but I think it being challenged also strengthened it because, and I think that's like important. Um, because if like you're never like challenged in any type of way, then it's gonna be very frail if it ever does get challenged, because it's not gonna grow in any type of way. So
Yeah.
I think when people like start asking you tough questions that you don't have the answer to, that's when you really like figure out, why do I believe what I believe, and is there a reason for this? Even if I don't have a perfect explanation, do I still like have a reason to believe this? And so I think over the years that has definitely helped. And it's not been so much like getting in back and forths like arguments with people that are atheists. Just like reading like even just comments like on the internet. It's
Yeah,
like
man.
the Bible isn't real because of this, this, and this, and you read it and you're like, well, if someone walked up to me and said that, I don't know if I would be able to argue with them. I don't know what to say back. You know, so it's stuff like that where you kind of like do some research and then like think, well, why do I believe what I believe? And it kind of grows from there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like a constant process of growing. Because I think my faith is definitely getting stronger, but I know it can get even more stronger than what it is right now.
Right. And it's by doing the same things that you're doing right now. It's by doing your research. And I mean, it's so important for us as Christians to do our research and to be like First Peter 3:15, always be ready to give a defense for what you believe in. That's not just true about Christianity. That's like can be applied to everything else. If someone were to say, why are you a Lakers fan?
Yeah.
It's like you'd probably be able to give them a few reasons,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like we do this in normal day life and every other area. And so it's like, why do we not prepare as Christians? Why do we not do our research and be willing to have those conversations with people. You know, in our youth class this summer, we're doing a series called Real Life, and we're taking these deep real life scenarios that these kids could be put in, and we kind of give them a prompt and give them like this situation, and we say, how would you respond?
Mm.
And we had a few kids that came up to us and said, do you think you can send the prompt to us a day early so we can do some research on it and think about it, because I don't do well on the spot.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, in having conversations, let's say you encounter an atheist, it's very okay for you to say, you know, I don't have the answer to that right now. Would you be willing to meet tomorrow and we can get together and talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes we act like you have one opportunity with this person one time. Like, you'll
Yeah.
never get another chance. But for someone like your mindset, it's like you're doing this research before that conversation, almost kind of hoping you can have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But even after all the research you do, they might say something or ask something that stumps you, and you go, "Hey, can I revisit that?" And we come back and we talk about this again. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, and I definitely agree. I think because a lot of the like comments that I'll read or like anything that I'll see that will challenge my worldview, a lot of the time it won't be like atheists that are like curious of learning like
Mm,
if it's like if Christianity is for them or not. It's more atheists trying to disprove, like being more like critical of Christianity, like trying to tear it down. So it's more of like of a defensive stance you have to take than like a here's what it is. So that's kind of like what's always on my mind, because not to bring it back to math too much, but when uh like in math there's these things called proofs where you prove something is true. Like I mean, like Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Like we learned that in like high school. Like there's steps. You go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you prove it to be true. You like very rigorously, very thoroughly, and then like no one can argue on it. Like it's
mm,
proven, it's on the piece of paper. No one can like say that's not true anymore. Like it's true. It's in textbooks now. People learn it. It's always true for sure. And like with the Bible, it's like you can't really do that, which has always been my struggle. It's like you can't like be like, okay, it's indestructible now. Like it's proven. Like we go back to like that faith argument, like that faith topic, and like I think that's where my biggest struggle is. Like I said, just there's not that like definitive like indestructible proof that like no atheist or anyone can like tear through. It's like you always have to keep like building up your argument.
yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like that's kind of one of the struggles that you have in being a Christian today. Do you have any other struggles that you would be willing to share?
I think like one of my biggest struggles, I will say this cuz I just recently found in the past year that I have OCD.
Oh, really?
So like when we talk about doing things very rigorously or very like ritually, um like for example doing prayers, I struggle a lot with like not saying the exact same prayer over and over, because like I want to like just say it like the way I always do it, or like do the same routine over and over again. So it's hard for me, I think, to like, or like when we go into communion, like okay, this is the routine that I'm in, like I go in, do it this exact same way. So for stuff like that, I think it's always hard for me to like come to like God with a new mindset like every time of not just like I'm gonna repeat this the exact same way I did it last time, but
Yeah.
like I'm gonna come like, and it's okay. It's even good if like it's different from last time. If my prayer's different, if I say like different words, it's fine if it comes from my heart. So
Yeah. Okay, what are some encouragements that you would offer to a Christian that might be listening to this podcast?
I would just say, you're not gonna have all the answers, and it's okay to search for the answers. It's okay to like continually search for the answers, because I'm still looking for the answers, like even today, and I know like when I die, I'm not gonna have all the answers, but I'm not really gonna stop looking for them. I wouldn't say like, oh, there's just some things like you can't know. I mean, there are some things you can't know,
Yeah.
but like you want to know and you want to like know more than what you already know. So I think it's okay to, look in the Bible and try to like learn and put all the pieces together and try to like build up this like knowledge of the Bible. And even it's never going to be complete though.
Hmm.
So like if you're like a person like me where like it needs to be complete, like just know it's not going to be, and you are gonna have to rely on faith for it, for the part that's like not there, like the missing pieces. Um, so I think if you're struggling with that, it's just one of those things where, you can pray about it, you can study your Bible, but at the end of the day, there's gonna be those missing pieces, and so that's just where faith comes in.
Cool. What about to a non-Christian that might be tuning in to listen to you? What would you
Um,
offer to them?
I would say that it's there's definitely a lot of like points that can make a lot of sense from an atheistic point of view if you just listen to like one specific argument. Um and I notice like when Christians and atheists like sometimes debate or whatever, they'll like pick the weakest argument that the other side has and tear that part down.
Yeah.
Um so instead of trying to tear down the other side's weakest argument, you should look at the other side's strongest argument and try to attack that. And that goes for Christians as well. Like, not just
Yeah.
look at atheists' weakest argument for being an atheist, but look at their strongest argument. And as an atheist, you should look at not just Christians' weakest arguments for being a Christian, but look at their strongest arguments and see, like, is there something there? Can you refute their strongest argument? And if you can't, why can't you? And just go from there.
I think it's important for us as just people to realize people are the way they are for a reason. Like, I'm not a Christian just because I wanted to be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were so many compelling truths that I couldn't deny that caused me to be a Christian. And on the flip side, like for atheists, they're not atheists just because they want to be an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they have been taught and they've come to the conclusions that they've come to for a reason. Like they're an atheist for a reason. They strongly believe in what they believe in. And I think a lot of times as Christians, we get caught up in thinking that it's so absurd. How could anyone ever not believe in God? And we almost discredit them as people. We
Mm-hmm.
don't look at them as, hey, God loves them. God loved them so much that he was willing to die for them. And we kind of put them into this other group of people that we just don't associate with. But I can definitely tell that you're not that kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Like that you care about them and you love them and you want to help win them over for the kingdom. And it's a great quality. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful that we have people like you that have that mindset and want to change the way things have always been done. In your Devo, I remember you shared something along those lines of, like we're all here for a reason, and I'm this way because I've had these questions in my mind, and these people are this way because they've had those questions in their mind. Maybe as we come to the close of this episode, share with us just a little bit about, how can we bridge that gap between the Christian to the sinner that's out there?
Um, well, I think asking questions that you wouldn't normally ask is like one of the biggest ways. Because, I mean, if you're the type of person that asks like these specific questions, or like you think like I got the answers for this area, branch out and say like it's not blasphemous to say like why is this person an atheist, is what are the arguments for atheism, because if you're scared to even like look towards atheism and see is there arguments towards it, then that's kind of almost a lack of faith. Like
Mm,
you're not even willing to challenge yourself, because you should be able to like look at atheism and be like, why does this person believe this, or for any other religion, be like, why is this their beliefs, and does any of them have any merit? And if you think any of them have any merit, then you should look at it deeper. And I'm a Christian because I believe, like, I've looked at it and it makes the most sense to me to be a Christian. And if I didn't think that, I wouldn't, like, if I looked at the atheist point of view and that lined up with what I thought made the most sense, then I would be an atheist. I'm not just a Christian because I feel obligated to be one. And
Or
so,
because you grew up
yeah,
with a family of Christians.
yeah, and I definitely think, and that I think also that influences it though, because I grew up as a Christian, and I think I am a Christian because of that. And so, if someone's an atheist and grows up an atheist, they can have a more atheistic mindset. If someone grows up as a Jew, they can have more of a Jewish mindset. So I think the biggest thing is like just reach out and look at like other stuff. Don't just look at what you've grown up with, but just look at everything and try to make like an objective decision, because God's not going to be mad at you for like looking at everything and then picking, because that's really what deciding on your own is.
Yeah. Well, man, do you have anything else to share?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Christian Next to You. Mason, I'm thankful for this time that we had together.
Thank
I
you.
think it went really well. I'm glad I got to get to know you a little bit better. And we'll be working together for like the next 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And so be praying for Mason. Be praying for me. I have to deal with this guy. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It's going to be great. Pray for our youth this summer. Super excited about what we're going to do together. And so, again, thank you for joining us. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. If you don't mind leaving us a good review on Spotify and Apple Podcast, going on YouTube and liking the video, subscribing to the video, or subscribing to the channel, will go a very long way. So thank you for that. I've been your host, Parker LaGrange. I love you. God loves you, and hope to see you all in the next episode.